Welcome to the 1%er podcast. My name's Ed Jaffa and I'm joined by a special guest today. He is known as the entrepreneur's Dr. Behrooz Behbod. Welcome, Behrooz. He's also, before I introduce him, he's been one of my clients for the last 90 days in my 90-day coaching program. Welcome to the podcast, Behrooz.
Thank you so much. It's such an honor. Honestly, I love working with you and it's so great to actually be here with you today.
It's been a pleasure. Before we get started in what we're going to talk about today, we're just going to share some of your journey in my 90-day program. But before we do, just tell us a bit about yourself and what you do as the entrepreneur's doctor.
Sure, no, I'm happy to. As a medic, I'm a public health doctor or preventive medicine doctor, and it's kind of ironic. I'm here. I've been training for the last 20 odd years. I've been working with patients, with communities to improve health and well-being, to tackle the issues you tackle head on. But there's been a number of challenges, personal challenges that I've gone through with my weight going up and down. I've had like chronic illness, like asthma, for example. And I would say there's two things. So I've always tried my best to look after my own health, but it's always been easier looking after other people. It really is. So there came a point where I thought, okay, there's two groups that I love working with. Number one, it's working with anyone who wants to look to improve health and well-being in communities at large. And number two, it's the innovators and entrepreneurs who actually don't just talk the talk, but they actually take action. I love working with them. They see a problem and they actually set out to solve it rather than just mumbo jumbo talking about it and just, that's it. Pretty much what I might do, right? As you've seen, and we'll talk more about it today. Yeah. So I love working with entrepreneurs to help them take the problem that they've seen and actually translate it into a meaningful outcome, a solution to help health and well-being. But for me, the reason I got in touch with you was because I've been struggling with my own health, and there's really no way that a doctor can treat themselves. And I don't need a doctor right now. I needed someone like you that can actually hold my hand essentially, and just help me go through this process. And the last thing I'll say, which I'm sure we'll touch on, as someone who has been like me with chronic weight issues going up and down the scale, it's really hard to shift and really make a behavior change. And I think we'll elaborate on it, but it's really just, can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, of course.
And it might be an excuse. But I truly believe it. And there's scientific evidence to prove it. This is me as a medic now talking and a public health doctor. It's really hard once you're on this trajectory to gain weight and you've gained the fat cells in your body. It's really hard. You can lose it. I lost 50 kilos a few years ago, and the fat cells haven't gone anywhere. They've just shrunk in size, and they come right back, flooding through as soon as there's something underlying it that's triggering the fat to come back. So really for me, the best ways to do it is to work with people like you that can tackle behavior change head on a one-to-one and a group basis. But it's really to go upstream and actually prevent this in the first place. And I'll just say two things. Number one, it's to change the environment that we live in. And it's also to make it more conducive to physical health and, physical activity. And then the second thing is start early. Just help children not get fat in the first place. And I'll stop there.
Yeah. I think that's a really valid point, actually. It also, a lot of our behaviors, we talk about behavior change, but a lot of the behaviors we have come from childhood. And if we can do something for our children to stop them going on a path that perhaps they shouldn't be, going down, then it all starts from childhood, because, we learn some of, our most important habits. We learn, between the ages of 0 to 5, we're like a sponge. We learn the most during that sort of age of our lives. And so it's really important that the education and the habits and everything we're teaching our kids is so crucial at that age, because it will stay with them for life.
And you know what, people like you've got so much power to help, because I would go even one step further upstream. So just take you and me, we've got children around the same age, right? So we imagine when we were deciding to become pregnant, we were deciding to have a child, and there was so much prep involved, all these immunizations and all that. But what else could you be doing? So someone like you and other health professionals out there, if you work with the parents to help them get fit, get well before pregnancy, during pregnancy, so that they set up this environment so that that child growing up can be in an environment that actually is conducive to a lean. As you say, as we always say, it's those people around you that form and shape your life.
Yeah.
So at least set that early life into a healthy one.
Definitely. We'll talk about that in more
absolutely.
as we go on. But like, what inspired you to help entrepreneurs in the health and well-being space? What inspired that change for you?
So I think it was about 10 or so years ago. I was trying to remember this, answering someone else's question recently. And, as a public health, especially doctor, we work with so many different kinds of people, kinds of professionals to get the job done. I mean, the ultimate goal for us is improved health and well-being of the population at large. That's the end goal. And it's this, if you go one step back, it's how do you do that? Who do you have to work with to get that done? And public health as a medical specialty is one of those where we have zero power, but a lot of influence if we use it right. So I work with, policymakers, I work with educators, I work with engineers, urban designers, the works. I may have said a couple of them twice, but essentially, innovators and entrepreneurs, I started getting to know in the last 10 years that you are essentially people who are, if you think of it like researchers, in an academic environment. When we do a scientific study, we basically find a problem, we ask a question, we gain the evidence and come up with a solution, publish it in a journal, go to a conference, and that's it, essentially. And hopefully someone's going to pick up the reins and actually do something about it. Innovators and entrepreneurs work together in the same way, but actually translate that question into an actual action and an actual outcome. And that, for me, is the whole point of getting information and knowledge. If you don't translate it into action, what a waste of time. Yeah. So that's it. Working with entrepreneurs pretty much is the reason that I'm here, is essentially you help me take the problems that I've seen and observed, formulate them into actual meaningful solutions and help the communities out there. Yeah. That's my goal.
So would you say that was one of your biggest frustrations when working in, a corporate environment compared to, taking action yourself and building this business, your own business rather than working for someone else? Was that one of your biggest frustrations?
Yeah, so I've always seen myself as a intrapreneur, so doing those things on the inside. And I wouldn't say that's a real frustration, other than I love this. If you could let me loose on working with people, doesn't matter who they are, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, to problem solve and come up with solutions and do that, but also educate them on how to do it in the best way possible, I'm in heaven. I could do that endlessly. And I would say the only frustration I have with my day job, if you like, because that's where I have a lot of influence too in terms of improving health and well-being, and I don't want to lose that, is essentially there's not enough time to be as creative and to be as entrepreneurial or intrapreneurial within an organization. This, being the entrepreneur's doctor, frees up allocated time to do what I love the most. That's the benefit of doing this separately.
Yeah. Love that. Cool. So let's talk about you now.
Sure.
So I think you've touched on why you decided that you wanted to work with me. How did we connect, first of all, by the way? Was it LinkedIn, Clubhouse?
It must have been combination. It must have been. I honestly don't know, but we honestly just got in touch somehow. It happened organically. And there was a key moment, I would say, a trigger. So working with entrepreneurs, often I find that there's a particular pain point that they've seen and that they want to solve it, whether it's in their own health or whether it's in a loved one or in a place that they live. And it's the same problem I've been having too. And along the way, I went on Clubhouse, speaking of Clubhouse, back in like the early part of the year when there was complete lockdown and we were all on Clubhouse 24/7, I think. And I was hearing more and more entrepreneurs talk about their own health issues. And I thought, okay, there must be something in this. It's not just us helping the community, but actually what do entrepreneurs need? So I was intrigued by what you offer in terms of lifestyle change. I mean, I'm a big proponent of lifestyle change, but I also thought, okay, I need to solve my own problem, as you know, and we can talk about it. So there was a moment we got on a call. I was inviting you on to be a guest on my podcast, which will come out soon. And I thought, what the heck, let's do this. Let's just put myself in there. And I honestly, at that moment in time, I said, let's do this 90-day change with you, and let's go live every single day on YouTube and on a podcast and actually talk about this change and insight. So I think that was what materialized in the end.
Yeah, well, I love that. I love that about you, the way you just kind of launched yourself into it, and almost wanting to be a great example, a great role model for what you're trying to promote in the world, for sure. And you also went very public with it. You made it very accountable. You were documenting your journey, your struggles, your challenges, your learnings every single day throughout the 90 days, which was a challenge in itself. But yeah, tell me some of the other challenges that you experienced along the way. What was your biggest struggles?
The biggest struggles, I would say, I mean, it's all documented, as you say, but I would say that the biggest struggle, which you've heard me say time and again, is what's up here. Honestly, we all talk about it, that mindset is absolutely critical to anything we do, whether it's in health or business. And it came out and it just showed itself head on. I was doing well. It was the honeymoon phase of the first couple of weeks. We went into some minor struggles with foot blisters, doing all these 10,000, 15,000 steps, whatever. Then the treadmill that I have broke down and I had to get a new one. But all of these combined were nothing. Really, the ultimate blocker has been mindset. And I've always, you've caught me out on this. I've always said that I'm the fat guy trying to run. I'm the fat guy who is trying to lose weight. And the word trying, that verb itself is a problem. So that has been the biggest obstacle. And, just backing up a second, whenever we talk about behavior change, whenever we want to help someone go through, let's say you could go through extreme body transformation through going under the knife, whether it's a cosmetic one or bariatric stomach stapling, that kind of surgery. Really, the core element of that is to go through a mental health and psychology shift before you even go under the knife. That's critical, because you could come out the other end and you're the same person. Nothing's changed. So I think that's the key thing, that even though the 90 days didn't materialize in the weight change that we were looking for, it's materialized in many other aspects, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a very valid point there. The way you see yourself, you can see yourself as the fat guy trying to run, or you can see yourself as a runner. What's going to be more supportive of your goals, and how you see yourself is very important, because if that's who you identify with, I know we've done a lot of work on trying, it's probably been the biggest focus of our 90 days really, is just getting that mental shift of how you see yourself. Do you see yourself as a fat guy? Because if you see yourself as a fat guy, you'll always be the fat guy. Like you said, you've lost 50 pounds before, so you're capable of losing weight, but you also put that weight back on. Because if you always see yourself as the fat guy, you're always going to default back to your original identity. So, one of the biggest and hardest transformations to make, and I'm sure you can vouch for this, is to change who you are, to change the way you see yourself to the person you want to become. Would you agree? Absolutely.
And I think we've just got started, you and I, and I think it's taken a long time. It really has, but we've literally just identified the problem, and we've got started with making that mindset shift as well, because it's critical. And I think this has been the stumbling block for the last 42 years. It really has been.
Yeah. Because as we said earlier, like a lot of what you know and learn has been programmed into you from the ages of 0 to 5. So like, was you ever sporty as a youngster? Was you, did you identify with a sporty person as a youngster, or was you always someone who was, the fat bloke
Yeah. So it's funny you say that, and I would say, yeah, there's been blips, I would say, but the first few years of my life, up until early teens, I was a swimmer. I was on the swimming team for our city up in Leeds. And if you looked at this, swimming lanes, I was in the fast lane always. So I was actually the good one. Always terrible on land. I could never run to save my life. And you've seen that. But swimming, I could swim endlessly. So I've always been a good swimmer. I still am. But in terms of running, absolutely not. And then there was another major shift, which was right before going to uni, in my gap year. I took a year out, did my voluntary work experience, to get into med school. And I was in the gym, left, right, and center. I was in the gym, and I was really sporty then. I was doing really well, actually. Doing a couple of hours a day was probably excessive, to be honest. But I was exceptionally lean, and I think I was fine then. But those were the only two blips in my life. The rest of it has been what you see right here.
Yeah. And you call them blips. Okay.
Yeah.
A blip we would describe as like an error.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, something went wrong to make that work, right? No, I'm kidding.
Okay, it's interesting how you describe them. Even your language describing the time you was at your fittest and most in shape was just a blip.
Yeah.
So, even the way you kind of see that part of your life is something that
it's like a short period. It's very short period.
Okay, cool. Be interesting to kind of maybe, it's kind of beyond the scope of this interview, but maybe at some point really kind of dive into that time, into that blip, and find out, like, the psychology. What was, where was your head at during that time? What was working well, and maybe kind of, tap into that for sure. But what would you say your biggest learning was, your biggest takeaway from the past 90 days and us working together?
There's one key moment that stands out, Ed. I mean, there's a couple of things. So I went in with zero expectations of what it's going to be like working with you. Honestly, we didn't really know each other, and I just said, let's take this risk because you came across really well and we've got a connection. So there were two things that I noticed. One stood out, and I'll come to the one that stood out in a second. When I'm on calls with you, honestly, like, it's the accountability. That's the number one thing that I need and most of us need. But I thought, I'm just going to be telling you stuff and you're going to be like, pointing the finger at me and all that. Or I'll say something and I'm going to hear what I know anyway, because, I work with patients too. I know how this stuff works. But actually, it's not the same. Not at all. First of all, you're very approachable. Maybe it's just because we're about the same age, but you are very approachable. And the way you quit, I mean, you are a coach. The way you ask those questions, it comes from experience, you can tell. And they really dig deep and sometimes get at the core of the problem and made me think. But there's one thing that stood out, and this is what I want to share, which was I was struggling. I think it was midway into this. And you said, okay, tonight, I'm going to take time out. And this is an excellent thing that you offer, which is you get this like weekly appointment with you, but you actually do go extra and you actually offer these bonus sessions just out of the blue, just when it's a tough time. And this time you said, I'm going to call you, put the camera on, get on the treadmill for God's sake, and start doing what you would do anyway. And then you walked me through this. And this is where it stood out, which was you got into my head. As soon as we started, it was like, you are a runner. You are a runner. You are this lean guy. You were basically painting the picture of what I should have been painting all along. And it really worked. Normally I would have probably struggled to run for a few minutes and then I would stop. And just as I was about to stop, and I was literally breathless and I was about to collapse, you're like, keep going, keep going, keep going. And I think we did 4 times as much as I would have normally done.
Yeah.
It was really impressive.
Nice. That's amazing. Yeah. Accountability is just, it's the most powerful. Anyone who has a goal whether it's a fitness goal, a business goal, whatever it might be, it's easy to let yourself off the hook when it comes to pushing yourself. But you know, the most powerful thing that you can have in any journey is accountability, you know, to someone else, not just one person, but a team of people, an environment of people that hold you to a higher standard. So like, it's the most powerful thing, because listen, you know, if it was just a case of getting the information, the education and knowledge, we could all find that. You know, we have the internet, we've got YouTube, Google, we can search anything we want to. If you want to find out how to lose weight, it's not rocket science. You know, it's, you know, you can find any workout you want on YouTube. You can go online, find any healthy meals, recipes. Yeah, we can learn whatever we want to exercise and eat healthy, build a business, to, yeah, be a better husband, a better parent, whatever our goals might be. We can find the information, but it's actually taking action on it, someone holding you accountable to the journey, and, you know, breaking that information down into actionable chunks and milestones that will lead you to the path that you want to, you know, down the path that will take you to your goals, and holding you accountable to that week by week is a very, very powerful thing.
Ed, I've got to add to that. Honestly, you mentioned community, and I've got to go all in and describe the benefits of your community, if I may. You know, you're absolutely right. Knowledge, information is important, but it's not the be all and end all. And even having you has been great, but it's not the be all and end all. Having you one-to-one, I think the bonus that you've offered me has been this community. And I'm just going to do a shout out to 2 members of this community who've been fantastic for me. So first of all, they came onto the podcast, as you know, with the 90-day challenge. First one that really was my first guest on that, I wasn't even planning to have guests, was Pam. Pam, one of your members, she came on and shared with me her personal journey and working with you, of, you know, her personal struggles as an entrepreneur, as a business leader, also supporting other business leaders as well out there, but struggling with her own health. And we resonated so well. And one thing that I valued the most from her was her persistence through so many struggles. So that's Pam. I won't say her last name just in case she's not happy to be on, but you can add that later. And the other one is John. I mean, he came onto the podcast, and he's former, you know, I think it's in Marines or military. And he taught me one thing that I remember. He said a lot of things, but it was that 5-20 principle. Do you want me to share it, or do you want to highlight what it? Please. You know, it's really important, because it is exactly the problem that I have, and all of us have, pretty much, I would say, you know, which is, it's the same concept as putting the oxygen mask on when you're on a flight for yourself before you help someone else. And essentially, he was teaching me something he'd learned in the army, I think military, I don't know which part of it he was in, but essentially, if you're in a group and you're going on combat missions or whatever, or if you're an entrepreneur or a health professional looking to help find solutions to problems, first, look after the first 5 feet around you, which is look after yourself before you help anyone else. And then look around 20 feet further to see who else is in your team and you can help them. It's important. They're both equally as important, but you have to help yourself first. Yeah, definitely. I love that. Analogy. Yeah, that was really powerful. I'd not heard that before, but I've heard of the, you know, the saying, put your own oxygen mask on first. I've heard that before, and that was really powerful the first time I heard that. But the 5-20 rule, yeah, the first time I heard that was when John mentioned it on your podcast. So yeah, you know, the environment and the people you're around and network with, I think is very powerful. And you know, one of the reasons I put my group together was because of your group. You know, having been inspired by your community, as well as Pam and John's. You know, you can see the power of surrounding yourself with good people that hold you to a higher standard. They share your goals, your vision. You know, and you know, when you're being pulled along by people that are all heading in the same direction, it just makes it much easier. When you're trying to do this journey on your own, you know, when you're around, people, sometimes those people are our own family, the ones closest to us, but they're not
you know, they're not the most, I don't want to use the word supportive because that's not necessarily true, but, you know, they're not on the same mission as you are, you know, and that can be a problem because it feels like you're alone and it can make the journey 10 times harder. But when you're around people that are on the same mission and share your goals, your vision, and understand you and what it is you're trying to achieve, it just makes things so much easier. So I think, yeah, community is key. Teamwork makes the dream work is one of my
absolutely
one of my mantras for sure. One of my part of my methodology, the EdFit method: exercise, diet, fun, intensity, and T for teamwork. One of the 5 key principles for achieving your fitness goals or any goal in your life, for sure.
Don't underestimate what you just said. There is a framework, you know, EdFit, it stands for something. It's a 5-pronged, I think, framework, but that shows one thing that I'll say briefly. You know, our loved ones around us, they care, they want to help, but they don't know how. You know, anyone, I could be a doctor, but it doesn't mean I'm a great teacher or a coach. You know, you need a specific skill set to be an effective coach and a mentor and a teacher. And so working with someone like you helps. It could have been, you know, a loved one, but they're not equipped to help me. So I have to go to someone like you.
Sure. Appreciate that. And what would you say to anyone thinking about it right now? You know, fitness, it's one of those things that we know is important. We know our health is important. It should be the most important thing we focus on, but often, yeah, especially with entrepreneurs, business owners, they get caught up in business and, you know, they get busy focusing on work, and often their health and fitness can become less of a priority. What would you say to anyone in that situation, sitting on the fence, maybe thinking about getting started? They know it's important, but they're just holding off. You know, you just kind of leapt in, you didn't know what to expect, but you did it anyway. What would you say to anyone just kind of thinking about getting started?
So, first of all, what have you got to lose? Really? What have you got to lose? But a lot to gain. I mean, the worst case scenario is you do 3 months or 9 months or whatever, it doesn't matter. And you come out the other end, no change, really. But you won't, honestly, I would say the 2 things that help, you know, often when you're working with people in this field, we've always got this distant goal of preventing disease, preventing a heart attack, preventing cancer in mind. But those are distant for most of us. Unless we've experienced something really painful at that moment in time, we often discount those later issues. So it's about what are the benefits here and now. And I can really easily say 2 or 3 benefits right now that doing what I've done with you has helped me. And really it's about the process more than the one-to-one interaction. You know, you taught me the most important business meeting of the day is the one you have with yourself. And if you can combine that, and that's what we did together, which is combine the physical activity, but also with the other aspects of it as well. The mindset shift, the framing of your mind, the visualization, all the different things that I've been doing over the last 3 or 4 months now, which essentially have 3 core benefits. Number 1, it just plans my day much better. You know, I wake up a little bit earlier and I set the rest of my day on a good path. You know, it's a good trajectory. By the time I sit at my desk and check my first emails, I'm a changed person already. I feel so much calmer. And it actually has changed my perspective on the problems I see on a day-to-day basis. Some of them I just don't care as much as I used to care before. The second one is, you know, you feel like you've accomplished something that is worth accomplishing. And really, without the mental health and without the physical health, the rest of it is just pointless, really. Those are the 2 core things before you can set up any foundation for any business or any venture that you're after. And the third thing is, you know, this is yet to materialize for me, but you're also a shining symbol physically. Apart from, you know, I work with entrepreneurs, I work with patients, clients, and everything is fine. But if I can actually transform my own health and be a beacon of change and transformation for them too, beyond the mindset, I think that will work wonders too.
Amazing. Behrooz, thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thanks for sharing and being a guest on the 1% podcast. Really appreciate you. And as you said at the beginning, this is just a start for you. so just to start for us on our journey and, you know, what we're working on, the mission we're working on. And yeah, I thank you for being here today and sharing your takeaways and some of your knowledge. Just before we go, how can people connect with you if they like what they've heard? I think what you're talking about makes a lot of sense and resonates with them. How can they connect with you?
Oh, I appreciate it. Look, honestly, I love working with you, Ed, and I see you as a friend more than anything else now. So keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right path, and I love you for that. For me, honestly, it's very easy. Just go to www.entrepreneurs.doctor, and if there's anything I can do to help, I'm here for you.
Perfect. So www.entrepreneurs.doctor.
That's it.
That's it. Just doctor.
That's it. Doctor.
That's it. Nice and simple. Easy to remember. www.entrepreneurs.doctor. And yeah, get in touch with Behrooz and connect. Cheers, Behrooz. Great to see you. And thanks for being a guest on the 1%er podcast.
Cheers, mate.